The setup at Medway is more than twice the size of the rest of it put together due to the technical works we do down there and the technical plant we've got. There's obviously not so much in rooms like this, but there is trend across the whole estate. And we do use it for obviously utility consumption monitoring as well. Everyone understand what BMS is? Yes, we said this already. Another example of how we use the BMS in terms of business continuity. This is just a screenshot of a critical checks page which we've got at Medway. We've identified what we consider business operational key plant. So we've got our central boilers here. We've got generator 1, generator 2, central chillers. We've got a centralised plant system at Medway rather than individual boiler houses, etc. For building, we've got like a big power generation plant in the central campus. The other sets of boilers have compressed air provision. And this is like in the security control room, they can see this. And these are just key, one page, a nice simple key check. If any of these functions drop out, we have a potential bit of a problem in our hands. They do occasionally, we manage them, but this is an example of how to use the BMS for business continuity or trying to address problems before they occur.
Who watches that?
Security gets one. This is just a single page, so basically tell them if any of those light, because these will flash. You know, that's a, you see up here, if you can read that, central chillers, the set point 6 degrees, the current time at that time is 6.3, so that's within a parameter of 6 degrees, 8.3 out. So everything is green and healthy. But should any of these go outside of their set parameters, one, this will flag up, and also we've got a mobile telephone with an SMS alarm connected to this, and it will instantaneously send a message to them to alert them to look at this.
To look at this,
looking at that. And then they've got, if you remember, I said what to do in the event of document. There's 4 documents I need for everyone. That will then tell them what they have to do. So we've got out of our support staff, call out contractors. Myself and my deputy are on call every other week to respond to problems to make sure they don't escalate. It's all part of the plan to make sure you've got a method or a process to deal with the problem as they arise or before they really become a problem.
Do you have any in-house engineers?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do have in-house engineers. We say it's a hybrid. We've got in plant, we've got subcontractors who come occasionally, and direct staff. It's but they've also got different trades, so they're not all generically do it all. We've got electricians, plumbers, fitters, mechanical, chippies. Obviously, you don't call a chippy in for a boiler problem, do you? So we generally find it's easier to have a contract with an external contractor for out of hours because they give you like guaranteed response times, and you're not relying on individual people. You know, if you employ a company, you'll get a engineer, a qualified engineer, rather than it's Bob, Dave, or Terry. You know, if it's your own maintenance stuff, you get sickness, holiday, that sort of thing to worry about. So that's why we sort of subcontract that.
So it's risky about.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we only really use BMS and the CAFAM as part of our BCP offering. You know, BIM, there is no BIM, so I can't say we could be in any way in business continuity. So we use the BMS, as I mentioned just now, as part of our business. It's not actually business continuity planning, but it's part of our processes of managing situations and trying to stop them occurring. Why did I put that question in there? How can you use electronic tools assist university grade BCP achieving the gold standard? So that's the 3 items. What did I say? The possible benefits. Well, yes, actually, this assuming if we did use BIM, if we had readable AutoCAD information available for us. So if we've got if we had, let's assume our estate is now all BIMmed up. You know, we've got all the information there. We've got the gold standard. Once we have a disaster, we've lost a building. We've got some fantastic data to know exactly what we need to replicate. Or if we lost a certain portion of the building, what's affecting what? If you imagine you have that site of the BIM model, that's theoretical. It doesn't exist, but it would be nice to be able to have that. With the CAFAM system, our mental space management, if we know the number of people associated to each room, particularly offices, if you've got 5 people here, 10 people there, we can gather all information in. We know that Bob, Dave and Terry need a space co-located, so that again informs our business recovery, so we're not going out and trying to find information, it's all on the system already. 3D modelling. that could, it's got potential. We don't use it, but I can see there is a potential. Once BIM's there and you've got this 3D model, how it will assist you in the event of there being a significant problem, disaster recovery implementation. So, nearly there. Final thoughts. There's significant selling of CAFAN, BIM, BMS and other electronic solutions as a saviour of all potential management challenges such as BCP. But the problem with them are they all require power. They all require internet, a computer, and as we touched on before, the likely scenarios of actually what would affect your business, i.e. loss of utilities, loss of your power, loss of your IT systems, are actually fairly likely. They are more likely to happen than the favourites, perhaps. So, do you want to rely on a computerised system in the event of not having a computerised system? Which takes you back to the, back to the old school of the paper pen and quill, and maybe a handheld radio-powered battery radio, beg your pardon, to be able to communicate with people. So, you don't want to go too far into the realms of, the future and whizzy techies answers, when in actual fact you just sometimes need a printed document and a pen and maybe a mobile phone. As I said, we talked about this earlier on. BCP is used in a situation where emotions are high and pressure performance is severe. So really heavy process and procedures need to be nice and simple, which is kind of where I think the German consultant looked at our documentation and said, that's just too hard to use in the event of there being a real big problem. You need to dumb it down and make it nice and simple. So I do agree with that. So, this is the end now. There was 4 elements to this. I sort of summarised my career and my experiences in facilities management, so you can understand where I'm talking to you from, my experience. I've demonstrated to you the size, complexity, limitations, and the individual challenges to the different areas of our estate. I've outlined the principles of the BCP as it stands, and how we approach it, and how we're now going to reapproach it within this current position of change and separation of 2 distinct elements. And then we've given some thoughts, just slightly at the end there, about how the modern electronic solutions, BIM, CAFAN, BMS, may complement or perhaps hinder an organisation's BCP. Any questions? Because that is the end.
How you said you outsource some of the, services, the specialist things. What if it's just something small? Do you have like a handyman in the building?
Well, no, yes, we do. We have a hybrid. We do both. We've got 5 in-house staff.
Okay.
To do the general stuff. I'd say easy, but if it's things like work with refrigerant kits, which requires the F-gas regulations, need to be a qualified refrigerant engineer to work on that.
Yeah.
And there's not a demand for someone to be permanently doing that. We call that resource in.
Okay.
If you're working with gas, for instance, you have to be certified gas fitter. Certain levels.
So it's just people that you use regularly?
Yeah, well, they're contracted. We have, for instance, we just let all the boiler maintenance and all the F-gas, which is refrigerant gas maintenance, to a single contractor across the whole estate. So they probably have a permanent man working on one of the 3 campuses. It's just it gives you flexibility. It also allows you to buy a specific skill set for one purpose.
Yeah.
You can just bring them in. If you haven't got permanently for them, why have them permanently? You just bring them in as you need them. So they have like a planned maintenance regime, but they'll also be our reactive on-call engineers as well.
Is that cost effective as well?
You could argue it both ways. Probably not. Think about it, because if you employ someone directly, you haven't got to pay profits and overheads on them.
Yeah.
But it does allow you to be flexible. It allows you to move things around nice and easy. A contract will only have a certain fixed period, won't it?
Yeah.
If you get it for 3 years, you can split. You can then change direction if you want to change direction, which is a bit easier than when you've got direct labour.
Yeah, because what I've read so far is that it's better to outsource.
No, it's not. It's really. I don't think it's. Right, there's a real. Never say. There's a real age-old question. Is it better in-house or outsource?
Yeah.
There's no answer to it, because it's entirely dependent on what you're applying it to. You can answer it both ways, depending on, if you're outsourcing, for instance, if you were Tesco's and you had an estate from John Oakes to Land's End, you may wish, I think probably outsourcing, because it's geographically so huge, is probably a sensible idea. And you'd probably regionalise it, wouldn't you? And then you'd get to, you wouldn't put your eggs in one contractor's basket. You'd have the southwest to one company, the northwest to another company. Would Tesco's take on the estate management of their entire estate nationally in-house? They would have a massive workforce, wouldn't they? So I imagine they would outsource. In that example, probably have management in-house and manage an external contractor or multiple external contractors. As I said, for the reasons why you don't want to, in case they fold, you want to have others who perhaps take over. Now, but here, for instance, you've got an historic building. You want someone who wants to take love and care. This building has got, you know, all the restrictions I mentioned, the World Heritage Site. You don't want someone doing this for, you know, the quickest way possible. You want someone to do it with love, care, and attention. You know, attention is detail, which you don't generally get if you're doing it for lowest price, as in outsource, because you'd have probably tended it, wouldn't you? So you might want to bring that as an example in-house. But that's what I'm saying, it's never one or t'other. You just got to apply, you look at, right, what am I applying that question to? Well, the answer is that. And it's not wrong, it's not right. That's what you would consider as the right approach.
Okay.
Would you consider resourcing in that bid?
Resourcing?
Resourcing in.
Resourcing in?
Yeah, like resourcing.
What, doing house?
Yeah.
Well, I can only give the example of what we do. We have a handyman, he works direct for us. All my management team are all directly employed. We had I'll be truthful, we had a personnel issues with a number of maintenance staff before, very belligerent and very unionised attitude, which was very unhelpful, unfortunately. Well, it's not, no, you have HR procedures to follow, but it does, when you have a workforce that is not really going, you know, not all working together, let's put it that way, it makes life very awkward and you achieve very little because you're managing things that don't necessarily need to be managed. So that might indicate to you that outsourcing would be a nice idea, because if they're not playing that ball, you change them. You know, so we have a hybrid, we've got both. As I was saying to your colleague up there, it's applicable to each situation, every situation is different. And the other one, of course, is don't fall into the trap of thinking you outsource risk. There's no such thing. It's absolute rubbish. If you're the duty holder or the responsible person or the owner of a property, outsourcing it, when for instance we've done doing gas and F-gas regulations, it's not now that contractor's responsibility. It never changes, it's still ours. Still our responsibility. We just get them to do the work, and people, there's a misconception that if you get someone else to do it for you, they're taking the risk.
Oh, you're mitigating the risk by doing that anyway.
You can say, well, actually, I'm employing a specialist in this field. They know more than me about this topic, so I'm employing them. But even if they cock it up, it's still your fault, because you need to have gone through reasonable measures and endeavours to make sure they're doing their job properly.
Yeah, you won't be liable. It wouldn't cost you anything. Could it be under this?
No, it costs you. You'll go to prison as much as they will. Yeah, so if one of our contractors died, me and the various chains above me on our campus, it's my fault. It's absolutely my fault. It's my building. I choose to bring someone to do something. I have to ensure they do it right. This is why outsourcing is a little bit. It's not quite as cut and dry as
you never get rid of the ultimate risk. The ultimate.
Yeah, the ultimate risk of always did you. Yeah. It's one. It's that's the fact. Yeah. I mean, things like asbestos, that stays with us, Legionella, just health and safety, general risk. It's actually the Vice Chancellor. You know, it's the same as any organisation director, you know, the Chief Executive. You've probably seen, like, there's a couple of train disasters, and they bring in Chief Executive of that rail franchise.
And they've had to retire.
And they say, well, what, you know, I do subcontracts. You know, the Potts Bar one, the rail maintenance contractor was found negligent of, no, they weren't doing their processes right, with refixing the bolts or something, the memory escapes me now. But it's still, the fact they've outsourced the maintenance to Serco, or whatever it might be, I don't think Serco, I shouldn't say that, but to a male rail maintenance contractor, it's still the responsibility of the Chief Executive. Anyway, that's
why they're pressured to resign when
resign before you push. Okay, so I'll continue with you if you wish on that matter, because we can't slightly go afraid of that. But is there any questions relating to this? Any more? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, just polite. What I forgot to tell you about the outset was Richard is alumni of the uni. He did his masters in FM. When did you graduate? Last year? You actually did it 2 years ago, but you graduated last year. I have to say, master's student with distinction, so there's a little bit of incentive. He's actually sat where you sat, so he understands what it's like to sit in a lecture at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon.
Well, I don't know if staying awake.
I've got another question.
Sorry.
Yeah, but it's for Christine.
Okay.
Sorry, Christine.